Tonight on Here and Now, 2 more suspected drug overdoses in the province this weekend.
Our focus is on promoting the use and obtaining of Narcan kits in our community.
The difference between life and death contained in this one vial. I'm Malone Mullen. I'll have that story coming up.
There's an affordable housing crunch in this province and right across the country. But what if you're in a housing unit and you want to get out? That's what's happening to 2 St. John's families.
Not fit for any kids to be being raised up down around here at all, right?
I'll tell you that story coming up on Here and Now.
The leader of the federal NDP is in St. John's, but could his visit be a sign that the next federal election is around the corner?
We'll be ready if there is one, and we're not worried. We're ready to fight an election at any time.
Coming up on Here and Now.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Heather Gillis, filling in for Carolyn Stokes. Our top story tonight, 2 more people have died due to suspected drug overdoses this past weekend. As Here and Now's Malone Mullen reports, advocates are calling on government to ramp up their response to prevent more deaths.
Police say toxic drugs are here to stay. And according to harm reduction advocates, they're killing more people than ever. 2 more died over the weekend from suspected overdoses, likely related to fentanyl, an opioid that's 50 times stronger than heroin. These days, it's being sold to unsuspecting partiers, largely in cocaine.
We have learned that there is presence of synthetic opioids such as fentanyl within those substances.
Police alerted the public last week to a string of deadly overdoses. There's now at least 11 in the last month. Those deaths aren't letting up, and this advocate says education is critical.
Even though the government introduced naloxone a few years ago when the opioid crisis was recognized in the rest of the country, they failed to provide information about what harm reduction is. The lack of education kills people. Simple as that.
Harm reduction focuses on making sure people can use drugs safely, instead of trying to prevent them from using drugs at all. It includes clean needles, supervision, peer support, and in some cases, a safe supply of street drugs. But this province is now focusing its efforts on naloxone, a drug that reverses an opioid overdose. The health minister said today officials handed out 400 naloxone kits over the weekend and have ordered 800 more.
We can't eliminate the product that's available on the street. That simply won't happen, but we can make the kits available to anybody and everybody who need them, and they will be available to anybody and everybody who needs them.
It's a far cry from abstinence messaging. Even police are on board.
The RNC taking a harm reduction approach is the approach that is going to save lives. And that is our focus, is preserving life.
But for Tree Walsh, naloxone kits won't help if political leaders don't act now to make sure people understand why they're using them.
What's happening in Vancouver is coming here. We can do our best to reduce the harm if we implement the right policies. Mr. Osborne, instruct your harm reduction section to get it together and produce a provincial education platform, not only for the workers, but a public one as well. Because if it's not introduced sooner, more people will die.
In a country where 20 people die of overdoses every day, for advocates like Walsh, how fast our institutions can change in response to this new influx of fentanyl is very much a matter of life and death. Malone Mullen, CBC News, St. John's.
Lots of addictions, lots of mental health issues. Some of it is, turning into crime. There are firearms issues. I'm scared a stray bullet. Our greatest fear is a stray bullet's going to end up somewhere and somebody will get hurt.
That's Mark Wilson, a resident of downtown St. John's. He and other neighborhood volunteers have been pushing the province and city to form a working group to address some of the crime and addictions issues that they're seeing near Carter's Hill. Wilson says a harm reduction van visits the area weekly, but it still isn't enough. We'll return to Carter's Hill for more of that conversation coming up in about 20 minutes on Here and Now. And affordable housing is a challenge in this province and right across the country. For some, that means being stuck in housing they don't necessarily feel safe in. That's the case for two families in St. John's. They're tenants of Newfoundland and Labrador housing. For more than a year, both have asked to be transferred because of concerns about criminal activity. But they say those requests keep getting denied. Here and Now's Ariana Kelland reports.
A moment of peace between mother and daughter. Jacinda McCormack says these moments outside her St. John's home are rare.
I've experienced threats, assaults, damage of my property, just verbal abuse, harassment. The list goes on. This doesn't even feel like our home anymore. We're stuck.
McCormack moved here in 2017, and the trouble began with a neighbor in 2021. She's been asking for a transfer to a different housing unit ever since, recording what was happening and sending it to the Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation without success.
They told me that if things escalate and charges were laid, that they would be able to move me.
In May, her neighbor was charged with assault, mischief, and uttering threats, but...
And then I was denied again.
That's my door, my front door. Right down. Just got home. It's all over my step. Used condoms, needles, other drug-related stuff.
This was last week outside Maurice Doyle and Ashley Conte's house on Livingstone Street. Just another day in the neighborhood, says Doyle.
One word, trouble. Well, it's just bad, very bad down there. It's needles and it's just all the trouble around here. It's not fit for any kids to be being raised up down around here at all, right?
I can see the police coming down the road. Is that a common sight to see the RNC?
That's very common. That's very, very common, but it still don't fix the problems.
Numbers obtained by CBC News show police have been called to Livingstone Street 142 times the first 7 months of the year. Doyle and Conte spend more time searching for used needles in this park than playing with their son here. They say it's untenable.
My son's only 3. He's not going to know what the difference is between a needle. He's going to think that's a toy. He falls, pokes himself. What happens then?
Like McCormack, Doyle has been asking for a transfer, and like McCormack, he's been denied.
Criminal use and drug use is not an excuse to move somebody.
So what does it take to move someone? The Newfoundland and Labrador Housing Corporation says there has to be extenuating circumstances, like if a tenant is the victim of domestic violence, if they have a disability or are underhoused. They also take into consideration employment and education. Now, the current transfer list sits at around 200 people province-wide, with the majority of which here on the Avalon. And if you do happen to get a spot on that list, there's no telling when you'll get into a new place. After CBC began asking questions about housing transfers when criminal charges are involved, McCormack got word. She's been added to the transfer list. For now, she says, they'll spend most of their time in here, waiting for the call. Ariana Kelland, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, it was certainly a little bit of a chilly start today, especially across parts of Labrador. Take a look at this number, 3 degrees in Lab City this morning. That is pretty close to the record for the coldest morning. You should be sitting around 9 degrees this time of year. They're right around there, though, especially as you head towards the coast. In fact, even a little bit warmer for Happy Valley Goose Bay. And those temperatures, although colder than they have been across the island, generally looking at around seasonal. Now, temperatures jumped up a little bit today, 14 degrees in Lab City. Most of Labrador, we're sitting somewhere between 13 to 17 degrees through the day. And we have similar temperatures, similar to normal, I should say, around 20 degrees in Badger this afternoon, only 19 in St. John's and about 23 in Corner Brook. Now, if we take a look at the trend over the next couple of days, we are going to see the cool pocket of air continue up across Labrador, but things start to warm up, especially through central and coastal, north coastal areas of the island. Tuesday, Wednesday looks like we'll see that as well, and this will be the trend as we head towards the weekend. Even some humidity returning. We'll talk all about it when I come back.
Thanks, Ashley. A fire severely damaged a building in Baie Verte this past weekend. In just a matter of hours, several businesses were destroyed. Here and Now's Troy Turner has more from the community.
It's only one building, but the fire that happened here over the weekend was devastating to the people of Baie Verte and the surrounding area. 5 businesses and organizations were completely burned out. The call came in at around 2 a.m. Saturday morning. The Baie Verte Fire Department responded immediately and were on the scene within 10 minutes. Other nearby fire departments were called to help fight the fire. The blaze tore through the building quickly and knocked out cell service when a pole was caught in the fire. A firefighter told me it burned so hot I-beams were bending with the heat, and he was unable to suit up even across the road beyond a ditch as the fire was so hot. Owners were not ready to talk about what happened here over the weekend and what will happen next. As for the cause of the fire, that will be up to investigators to find out. Troy Turner, CBC News, Baie Verte.
In other news, the province is rolling out a new electronic patient record system in ambulances. Paramedics will now enter patient information into tablet computers instead of doing paper charts. The province is hoping it will improve information available to healthcare workers when patients arrive at hospitals. Right now, it's only available in the eastern region, but it's going to be rolled out province-wide as the ambulance system becomes integrated. The health minister says it also means they can track trends such as overdoses in a specific area.
The electronic patient care record will give us insight into trends that are happening or the reason that ambulances are responding. So we can look at any particular neighborhood or any particular region or a particular town and look at whether there's a spike for any reason.
To politics now, federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is in the province today. It's his first stop on an Atlantic regional tour. Singh says the tour isn't a sign that he's expecting a federal election anytime soon. Still, his party and others are getting ready. Here and Now's Daryl Roberts reports.
Costs are up and wages aren't keeping up with those costs.
It's a familiar message. Federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh brought it to St. John's on Monday after a meeting with local union leaders. He pointed the finger at the federal Liberals and Conservatives.
8 years of Liberals being in power has made things harder on people. And the Conservatives are no better. They're going to do the same things that Harper's government did, which has made life harder for people in this province.
The federal NDP is nominating its candidate in St. John's East. 2 years ago, Mary Shortle lost to Liberal MP Joanne Thompson. Singh says this time, things will be different.
We've got a strong candidate and we've got a strong track record. We can show the people of St. John's East, look at what you got with New Democrats fighting for you. We were able to bring in dental care. We're going to bring in dental care that covers seniors by the end of this year. We're able to double GST rebate, put more money in people's pockets. We were able to get results. Without us, the Liberals have nothing to show.
Singh's visit feels like a campaign stop. He'll even stop by the St. John's Regatta. But he says that doesn't mean a federal election is coming in the near future.
We have no indication of that. There's no indication of an election happening. We'll be ready if there is one. And we're not worried. We're ready to fight an election at any time. But it isn't our goal. Our goal isn't to trigger an election or to force an election. Our goal from the beginning has been very clear. We want to force this government to do more for people.
This is Singh's second official trip to the province in recent months, and just the latest in a series of campaign-style visits from federal party leaders. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has visited Newfoundland and Labrador several times this year, targeting rural areas where the party has a chance of picking up seats from the Liberals. And he brought a campaign-style message about firearms.
If Justin Trudeau gets his way, if he wins the next election, he will ban all civilian firearms ownership. That is his agenda.
He's also attacked the federal government's approach to the oil industry, which got a rebuttal from the Prime Minister on his own campaign-style stop.
Climate change is a fact that nobody, except for Conservative politicians, is debating anymore.
Last week, Justin Trudeau was in Summerford, an area currently represented by Conservative MP Clifford Small, where he went on the attack against the Conservatives.
Now, there are folks out there who still say, oh, no, you know what? These are just inventions by a government in Ottawa that are trying to come after your jobs. Well, those people aren't being honest with you.
The NDP has agreed to support the Liberal government through a supply and confidence agreement until 2025, but either party could back out at any time, meaning a federal election might not be far. Daryl Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
Well, the Royal St. John's Regatta is set for this Wednesday, if the weather cooperates, of course. This year, myself and colleague Katie Breen, CBCNL's resident rowers, want to take you behind the scenes to show you some of the things you might not realize about the races. It's almost Regatta Day, and rowers spend a lot of time getting ready for the races.
There's months of training on the water, off the water, but you've also got to get your bag together.
Because you need a fine load of stuff to get ready to get out on the water.
But let's back up.
Before we get to what's in the bag, let's get to the backstory. The Royal St. John's Regatta is a weather-dependent holiday in the middle of the week.
But that isn't the only thing that separates the regatta from most other rowing. The regatta is fixed-seat rowing.
In the rest of Canada and most parts of the world, rowing is mostly slide seat.
That means the seat and the butt move together. The seat actually slides.
But in here, the seats are fixed. They don't move. So you need to move back and forth on the seat when you're rowing. So what do you need inside one of these boats? Let's take a look.
Measuring tape to measure the length of your oar,
a screwdriver in case you have to change the length of your oar,
wrenches to tighten the footboard once you get it in the right position,
water to stay hydrated,
and then car wax and a cloth to try and buff the seat and make it as slippery as possible.
And of course, you need to be prepared for all seasons. We start rowing in May and it's pretty cold, so you need your winter coat, a hat, and sometimes you need these rowing mitts called pogies to keep your hands warm on the oar.
When it warms up, you'll lose the jacket, swap a hat for a hat, and smear on the sunscreen.
No matter the weather, you're always going to want 2 pairs of spandex.
Anything to avoid butt blisters.
Nobody wants butt blisters.
Now everybody's just waiting for some sunshine, hopefully, at least some dry conditions as we head into Wednesday. We'll see if that happens. Right now, we've got lots of cloud cover and even some thunderstorms working their way across Labrador. We'll get into the details coming up.
Before we get to Ashley's forecast, check this out.
Not a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow, but a pod.
Stu Chase from Vancouver captured this stunning scene a couple of weeks ago while he was on an O'Brien's tour boat.
Pretty cool, hey? I'd say he's got his money's worth.
I would say, look at that.
What are the chances?
Just beautiful.
Great video.
And Ashley, the pot of gold at the end of my rainbow would be Regatta being a go on Wednesday. What does the forecast look like over the next couple of days?
Yeah, we still have a couple of days to get there, so I'm not going to make an official forecast probably until tomorrow, I guess. It doesn't look bad, though, that's for sure. Kind of unsettled across the province, and that will really be the story over the next couple of days. But here's where we sat today. So much cooler this week than it was last week, that's for sure. 23 degrees in Corner Brook this afternoon, 17 in Twillingate, same thing for Baie Verte. And even along the south coast, some of the warmer temperatures that we've been seeing, which is obviously opposite as well, 21 in Burgeo, 23 in parts of the Burin Peninsula. Now up across Labrador, your temperatures are still sitting somewhere between 11 and about 17 degrees through the day. Now, if we take a look at what's happening apparently at the harbor, not much. It's just a black screen, but we're looking at about 18 degrees right now out there, 22 with that humidex. You look at those winds around southeasterly, around 20 kilometers per hour. But if we take a look at the humidex values across the rest of the province, there's really not a whole lot of humidity out there to speak about now. It's feeling a bit more humid down through Stephenville, 24, Burgeo, more like 25, up across Labrador, pretty negligible. Only about 19 in Happy Valley Goose Bay. But if we take a look at the dew points, that gives us a better idea of where we're seeing some of that more humid weather. So dew points are sitting somewhere between 13 and about 17 right now across the island. And that means things are a little bit humid out there. But as we head through the next couple of days, we'll take a look at the muggy meter just to show you what's going to happen. By the time we get into tomorrow, it will feel a bit muggy out there, and then we'll get a bit more comfortable, and that will stay that way pretty much until we head to the weekend. Now, parts of Central may see a little bit more humid. It'll feel a bit more muggy, but overall the trend is to see some drier air. Now, what we have going on right now is some thunderstorms happening up across Labrador. The popcorn-looking things showing up on the radar, on the satellite is where we're seeing some of that lightning. That risk continues. It'll head towards, it's actually just outside Happy Valley Goose Bay at the moment, and that chance will head to you over the next hour or so. We may even see a few chances of thunder along the south coast of the island. Some showers are popping up on the radar right now through south coast, and the future tracker is doing a pretty good job picking up on that. So we'll assume we'll see some showers tonight from those, and then across Labrador, like I said, Happy Valley Goose Bay in seeing that chance of some thunderstorms moving through. Other than that, just some fog patches developing along the south coast, even eastern portions of the island, and then up across Labrador as well. Those showers will work their way towards the coast as we get into the afternoon. Here's your temperatures tonight. Another single-digit low tonight in Happy Valley Goose Bay, in Lab City. Happy Valley Goose Bay will be more than 10 degrees likely. Around 14. And then across the island, you're looking at temperatures between 8 and 16 through the day. But as we head through the day tomorrow, this line of thunderstorms that will develop into the afternoon along the west coast. This will be the best chance of seeing the thunderstorms. In fact, it looks like between noon and 2 o'clock is when the best chance of thunderstorms will be. And I just made a map for you just to show where we could see some moderate thunderstorms. So we could see some heavier rain showers associated with this, and maybe even some gusty winds in the areas highlighted in orange. But again, they'll move east through the day. By the time we get into 5, 6 o'clock tomorrow, they'll continue to move through central and should peter out by the time we get into about 10 o'clock in the evening rather. Here's your temperatures for tomorrow. Pretty similar to what we're seeing today. 19 to about 24, 25 degrees will be the rule across the island. And then up across Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures cooler. For the most part, Happy Valley Goose Bay should hover around 21 degrees tomorrow. And temperatures are going to warm up slightly as we head towards the end of the weekend for most of us. We'll get into that when I come back.
And as we saw earlier in the show, concern is mounting about drugs, specifically cocaine laced with fentanyl in this province. And in the downtown, Mark Wilson has some concerns about the neighborhood that he's living in, and you'd like to see some prevention. So Mark, thanks for joining us. And first, tell us what kind of solutions you'd like to see.
I mean, we need prevention to occur in the city, in this province. We need mental health and addictions supports. We need housing. There's a number of things that we've been advocating for here in our neighborhood and across the city. Other neighborhoods, other folks, other citizens are doing the work, but we really need our leaders to take this on.
What kind of situations are you seeing here in this downtown neighborhood that you live in?
Lots of addictions, lots of mental health issues. Some of it is turning into crime. There are firearms issues. I'm scared a stray bullet. I mean, our greatest fear is a stray bullet's going to end up somewhere and somebody will get hurt.
What kind of advocacy have you been working on to try to help people who are living in this area?
We've been working for, a number of us here in this community have been working for about 10 years to try to point out some of the, specifically after some of the murders that have happened here. So each time that happens, we kind of come back and say, okay guys, we're identifying these issues, whether it's poverty, housing, mental health, addictions. The past 2 years, we've been advocating very strongly. And just recently, we've worked as a neighborhood group, again, just as volunteers, putting a considerable amount of time together to create a number of asks for the city, for the province, and for our local MPs.
And you have asks specifically around harm reduction. What specifically would you like to see happen?
I'll be honest, Heather, I'm not a professional within harm reduction. We have asked for a committee or a working group to be formed, and we think we're pretty close to having that happen. We see the harm reduction, the Eastern Health Harm Reduction van come down to this neighborhood for a couple hours each week. We think that there's a need for more supports. There's the detox over in Pleasantville. It's not enough. The fentanyl issue, people need to know what's in their drug supply, what's in their supply, if it is going to kill them.
So like testing perhaps?
Testing, yeah, oh my God. It's what really scares me is that, we're not having these conversations in this city. For 2 years, we've been advocating very hard, and I don't think, I don't think we're the only ones doing it. I think that people are getting emails, people are getting calls about issues surrounding mental health and addictions across the city and across the province, and it's time that we see something be done to prevent these issues from continuing.
One thing I know that you have been talking to the City of St. John's about is either a safe injection site or a safe use site. Tell me a little bit about those conversations and where it went.
Again, I don't even know if I'm advocating for that specifically. There are issues around that. Not everybody would be comfortable with a safe injection site, but what I'm hearing from professionals is that's a way to reduce the harm. If somebody is supervised when they're taking their drugs, the reality is people are going to do these drugs, right? If they're supervised, there's less chance that they're going to harm themselves. There's probably less chance that they're going to harm other people too. If if there is an overdose, somebody's right there to help. And I think that that's just a safer way to do it. We have asked. I was told by the mayor actually last May, so over a year ago, that the city needed nothing really from the province, no approvals in order to do something like that. So I'm asking our leaders, where is the conversation on this? We need to be talking about this stuff.
How fast would you like to see something like that or any other harm reduction initiative implemented?
Right now, we cannot. We've discussed with the RNC some of the issues around drugs in this neighborhood and throughout the city and the province. The RNC are not going to solve these issues for us. They're not going to stop every bit of fentanyl-laced cocaine from getting into this province. We need to do something that is in addition to a policing solution. So I'd like to see this all happen right away now.
For thousands of years, warm ocean currents have passed by the province. So why are scientists concerned that that could soon stop? Ashley speaks with a researcher about it and the effects it could have. That story is just ahead.
There are warnings that currents in the North Atlantic, which have delivered warm tropical water past Newfoundland and over to Europe for thousands of years, could be shutting down. Scientists have been warning about this for years, but a new report suggests that it could happen a lot sooner. Peter Ditlevson's recent report in Nature Communications has received a lot of attention, and he joins us from Denmark. So what we're talking about here is something called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, or AMOC. So what is that, and what exactly does it do?
So the AMOC brings the warm waters from the tropics up to the North Atlantic, and it's driven by buoyancy. It's driven by heavy water sinking to the bottom. And water is heavy if it's salt and if it's cold. So it gives off its heat to the atmosphere, and that cools it. And while it's also salt, it can sink. And now with climate change, if fresh water runs into the North Atlantic, which happens with, melting from glaciers, river runoff, more precipitation in the ocean, and an export from the Arctic Ocean, then it gets less dense because it gets less salty, and that could stop the circulation.
Previous ice ages, the AMOC has collapsed and restarted many times. How do we know this has happened?
We know that from ice cores drilled in the middle of the Greenland ice sheet, and that's the ice sheet is really a deposit of snowfall through thousands and thousands of years building up into the glacier. And when you drill down through that, you can see past climate, and that showed, and we didn't know that before we saw it from the ice cores, that this enormous change in climate has happened several times during glacial times. And this was the basis for the movie The Day After Tomorrow, which and I can assure the viewers that is not what is going to happen, because the glacial climate was a very different climate from the warm climate we have now. But we did see very abrupt changes. So these changes between on and off of the AMOC lasted some few thousand years. But when it changed several, maybe 5-10 degrees over as short as a decade. And that can be compared to the 1.5 degrees that we've seen over a century now. So these are huge climate changes in the North Atlantic region.
So your paper found that it could be as early as 2025. Now that's only a couple of years away, but how likely is that scenario?
That's not very likely. That's not very likely. But we find the most likely in this analysis is in 30-some years, 34 years. I think that was the most likely, and that is very, very soon in terms of turning the ship in the green transition. So the urgency that also Guterres of the UN was out pointing out because of the heat waves is really here now. Because one thing is that we get a colder climate in Europe, maybe like Alaska, but the heat that's not transported to us stays in the tropics, and that is really critical in a warming world.
And so what does that mean for the weather we could experience here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
I think it will be a colder climate. I mean, it's probably more Europe that will see the change, but in all, the thing is we haven't seen this since the last ice age, so we really need model studies, and they give different sort of dire predictions in change in precipitation patterns, and especially also food safety. The recent study says that England and Ireland would not be able to grow the crops that they can grow now, and I guess that the same will go for Canada. So I think it's something we have to take serious.
What can be done to stop this from happening?
I mean, we in theory, what we think is that it's the more fresh water that comes from melt and so on, and that is related to global warming from greenhouse gases. So it's another call for urgency in reducing greenhouse gases. And what is important is that this is not just in the speed in which we put in more gases into greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. We have to stop because we cannot pass a certain level of concentration in the atmosphere before this happens. And that is very close.
Well, thank you, Peter. Thanks for taking the time to tell us about your report.
You're welcome. Bye.
Well, you might enjoy these little guys in a jam or a cheesecake, but have you tried baked apples with cod? We're getting creative in the kitchen. That's up next. Welcome back. If you're into local berries, you likely know that bake apple season is back. Andrea Monder runs Saucy and Sweet Specialty Food and Catering here on the Avalon. She's a big bake apple fan. The CBC's Martin Jones paid a visit to her kitchen in Petty Harbour to find out why bake apples and fresh cod are the perfect combination.
What do you have planned for us?
So it's going to be pan-seared local cod that was swimming yesterday. Bought it yesterday evening with the bake apple mignonette, which, as I mentioned, that vinegary, bright, fresh kind of almost salsa that we're going to put over top. I've started the process. I've got some green onion just minced in here. You could use chive, you could use shallots. You want that little bit of onion. There's some fresh bell peppers in there, a little bit of lemon zest, which you can see, and then we'll add the rest of the ingredients. So these are bake apples from last season. So I pulled these out to thaw. And you can see they do freeze beautifully.
Yeah, wow.
So I'm going to chop some, and then I'll throw a few whole or almost whole ones in at the end as well, just so that you really see the bake apples, because obviously it's a bake apple mignonette, that's what we're after. So we'll get ready now and cook the fish. I'm going to add a little oil. This is an olive and corn oil blend.
Okay. How hot should the pan be for this?
When you see the smoke a little bit, this might be even a little bit too hot, but you want to definitely see the sear. You could flour it if you want to, but we really shouldn't need to. It is a non-stick pan, so there we go. Okay. We've already seasoned both sides, so we're good to go there. And you don't want to move it at this point. Your tendency for a lot of people is to want to move it around in the pan. Yeah. And so what that's going to do is take away that crust. So the fish will almost tell you when it's ready to turn, because it will actually loosen itself up. It'll form that crust that you can actually move. So I'm just going to take a little peek and see what we're looking like here. We'll give it another minute. And I'm going to put a little bit of butter in there.
Okay. Does that just add flavor, or is this?
Exactly, yeah. Okay. So we have plenty of oil in there, and this is so fresh, this fish. I'm just going to be a little bit careful turning it, and I want to make sure I've got my oil handy, and I'm going to help myself turn it over. So there we go. Wow. Just a nice bit of color on there. Pop it on the parchment.
So good.
There we go. So that's almost cooked fish. You can see it's still got a little bounce back, so we're going to just finish it. It will only take a couple of minutes, I think, in the air fryer.
Okay.
As I was saying, this is a godsend right now because I don't have to turn on the oven in these hot temperatures. So we'll let that go for 350, and I'll set it. It won't take more than 3 or 4 minutes, so we'll just come back and check on it. So there's our beautiful mignonette. It's had a little time to sit and kind of come together. So I'm just going to spoon a little of that over the top, and then some of that gorgeous juice. Or so maybe we'll finish with a little bit of parsley, and there we go.
All right. Can I do a formal taste test here?
Dig
all right.
in, see what you think. Goodness, make sure you get a little bake apple and all that. Oh, nice and flaky.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it doesn't get fresher than
amazing.
That cod.
There's a nice vinegar, just a nice vinegariness to it too. That's unbelievable.
Fresh, light,
right?
Really healthy. I mean, the only oil that you're using is what you're frying it in. So super fresh and bright, full of all those good phytochemicals.
Do you know what I like? I can still taste the fish.
Yes.
But I can still taste everything else too.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you could spice it up if somebody likes more heat. You could absolutely add more chilies. If there's herbs that you prefer, you could add those. But I find that the mint and the tender herbs really do go well with bake apples.
You don't want this back, do you?
No, please. Right. That is all yours.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Winds that blew a fire into British Columbia from the U.S. appear to have turned around. The flames crossed the border from Washington State into south central BC Saturday evening. The fire is still listed as out of control. It now covers a little more than 1,400 hectares, but the number of properties under evacuation order has dropped from about 190 down to 700. Along with the change in the wind direction, firefighters are also benefiting from some rain and cooler temperatures. Tokyo's train system can be pretty daunting, but one railway station is working to remove at least one big barrier for tourists: language.
Having it like this, clear on a screen, it's really nice.
This is a special window linked to an automated translation device. It captures the conversation between the customer and the attendant. The display then shows words translated between Japanese and 11 other languages, including English and French. The success of this 3-month trial will determine a wider rollout to other locations. More than 100,000 rail passengers pass through central Tokyo each day. Well, killer whales aren't common in the Bay of Fundy, but people in New Brunswick have been treated to a repeat visitor over the years. He's known affectionately as Old Tom, and some were lucky enough to see Tom crop up near Grand Manan last week. Amy Knowlton is an old friend. She told the CBC what she knows about the orca.
Well, orcas, I mean, sighting orcas is just rare. It's a rare occurrence. They're not a lot of, the population of orcas is not huge, and they're not typically seen very close to shore. They typically are more social, so that's why Old Tom is sort of unique in his story. And I don't exactly know how old he is or what his total backstory is, but I know one of our first sightings occurred in 2015, and then subsequent sighting in 2020. I know he's been around the Baie Verte in other years as well, but in our 2020 sighting, he was associated with a pod of white-sided dolphins, which was pretty amazing. They were like playing around Old Tom, and whether it was they were just harassing him or it was a joint, like they like hanging out together, I can't say really, but it was pretty cool to see that. From my understanding, it is pretty atypical. So yeah. And for him to come back to the Baie Verte year after year is pretty amazing. So.
And Ashley, all eyes on Wednesday for the weather, in my house at least. Yeah. And for many people who are involved in the Regatta and who enjoy going to it, I mean, outside the overpass, I'm sure people are don't care about that towny holiday. But what can you tell us about, what we could see? The winds are the most important thing for the rowers.
Yeah, I don't see anything significant as far as winds are concerned. Good. We may see a few showers, it looks like at this point, obviously early forecast. But yeah. So let's just take a look. Let's see what happens as we head into Tuesday evening and Wednesday. So that area of low pressure there, pretty much centered over Labrador, is going to keep the risk of thunderstorms through the day and then likely into the early evening hours on Tuesday. But as we head into Wednesday, the area of low pressure pretty much sticks around. So we're still going to see that chance of showers. We may even see the risk of thunderstorms again Wednesday across the Big Land. Now, as far as the island is concerned, we're in southerly or southeasterly flow, depending on where that area of low pressure eventually tracks further east. But at this point, like I said, unsettled, chance of showers still lingering through the day. We may see a few showers across the Avalon, or it may just stay cloudy, but I don't see anything as far as soaking rain is concerned, at least through the evening hours anyway. But the winds will stay out of the southwest, it looks like at this point. By the time we get into the afternoon hours, temperatures will be into the low 20s. Humidex values may be a little higher than that, but still fairly comfortable. But yeah, that's what you're looking at as your temperatures. Up across Labrador between 12 and 19 through the day. Again, some periods of sun in there, but overall an unsettled afternoon that may feature some thunderstorms. Now, Wednesday evening into Thursday, the area of low pressure is in no hurry to go, but by the time we get into the morning, afternoon hours, we should start to see some clearing skies across the island. As far as Labrador is concerned, the chance of showers will still stick around for you. And then into the evening hours, if this model's right anyway, we may see some cloud cover linger, and that's because we're in generally easterly flow. So that means onshore winds, and that also means the chance of some fog patches in those east-facing shores on Thursday. Temperatures are going to start to climb up, though. So again, mid-20s, humidex values likely closer to the upper 20s by the time we get into Thursday afternoon. But it should feature lots of sunshine across the island. Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures between 12 to the north, so coolest for you, but the rest of Labrador will sit somewhere between 17 and 21 degrees through your Thursday. Long range forecast, not too much in the way of change as far as temperatures are concerned, so 19 to about 21 or 22 through the next couple of days. And as far as showers are concerned, looks like some may move in by Friday, but overall a fairly nice week. And then for central Newfoundland, even nicer with lots more sunshine in the forecast. Temperatures even a bit warmer, and pretty much a carbon copy for western Newfoundland. Your overnight lows generally sitting between 12 and about 15 degrees. Now for central Labrador, eastern Labrador, you're looking at your temperatures between 21 and about 25 as we head into the weekend. Some showers likely on Saturday, a little bit more gray. That will be the story for western Labrador. Periods of rain, it looks like for Thursday, but by Friday and Saturday, that will just be some showers. But your temperatures between 17 and 18 degrees. Now it's been pretty nice to enjoy the weather. This shot is a quiet morning in Cape Bonavista. Connie Boland shared that great shot with us. She always sends lots of lovely photos. This one, no different. Thank you for that. If you have any photos, send them to Facebook or email them. That's the best place. nlphotos@cbc.ca.
How serene is that? How nice. Calm waters. That's all I'm looking for.
I know.
Locked in on Wednesday. Calm waters, light winds. That's all I want.
I'll see what I can do for you.
Can you put in a word?
I will.
Okay, you heard it here. Anyway, that's our show for this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.
Good night.